What's remarkable about history is ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Last year Rosa Parks passed away, and I remember sitting on this stage with world leaders and Bill Clinton and senators and governors and thinking we were all paying homage to a seamstress who had transformed the country and helped transform the world. We never know sort of how our actions are going to ripple over time. But each of us can take some responsibility for making sure that we are pushing a little bit in the direction of justice and in the direction of equality and the direction of tolerance. And when we do that, we may surprise ourselves with the amount of influence that in fact we have just by standing up or speaking up.
It started with a woman named Rosa Parks in Montgomery.
Black taxis and you had white taxis.
And Montgomery, like all of the South, had segregated buses. In interstate buses like this one, and in city buses, the whites sat in the front, the blacks in back. If more whites got on, the blacks had to give them the middle and back seats too. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white passenger.
I took a seat that was just back of where the white people were sitting. And in fact, the last seat, and the man was next to the window, and I took an aisle seat, and there were two women across. And we went on undisturbed until about the second or third stop when some white people boarded the bus and left one man standing, and when the driver noticed him standing, he told us to stand up and let him have those seats. He referred to them as front seats. And when the other three people, after some hesitancy, stood up, he wanted to know if I was going to stand. I told him I was not, and he told me he would have me arrested. And I told him he may do that. And when the policeman approached me, one of them spoke and asked me if the driver had asked me to stand. I said yes. He said, why don't you stand up? I said, I don't think I should have to stand up. And I asked him, I said, why do you push us around? He said, I do not know, but the law is a law and you're under arrest.
This was not the first time a black person had defied the bus segregation in Montgomery. It was not Mrs. Parks' first time. It was her first arrest. E.D. Nixon went to the police station to bail her out.
I said, Miss Parks, I said, with your permission, we can break down segregation on the bus with your case. I said, I'm convinced that we can do it. I said, if I wasn't convinced, I wouldn't bother about it. She asked her mother what she thought about it. She said, I'll go home with Mr. Nixon. I asked her husband, he said, I'll support it. That's fine.
E.D. Nixon and other black leaders called for a one-day bus boycott. In some cities, it would have been impossible to organize 40,000 people in 2 days. But Black Montgomery had a core of activists in the Women's Political Council, and they distributed these boycott notices all over the city.
Census passed. I was late for work because I was trying to see how many buses was empty, and they were totally empty.
The one-day boycott was a success. That night, a mobilized black community turned out for a meeting at the Holt Street Baptist Church and voted unanimously to continue the boycott. It started with a woman named Rosa Parks in Montgomery.
And we're going through the adoption process, but it was recommended to us that we should foster some babies.
And you did this really from a very young age, just really right after you got married.
Yeah, from just before I turned 21 we started.
How long do you have the children for?
This day and age, pre-adoption babies can be 4 or 5 months. Short term now does go up to 12 months. The longest we've looked after a child's probably been about 7 or 9 months.
A lot of people have the idea that that fostering children is about love of children, but it's more than that, isn't it?
Well, it's about making the experience for that child all positive. And so that in the future, that somewhere in the fabric of their being, there's a positive love that they'll carry through to their adult life.
So over the years you've fostered many, many children, but of course you've adopted 3 of your own, which raises the issue about fostering, that it must be hard at times to let go of children, that you know you've only got them for a short time, but you obviously create emotional attachments to them.
You know, we've been fortunate. I've not only looked after babies, we've looked after a 14-year-old that was developmentally delayed to an 8-year-old who had been raped and had a baby. Well, we took both that mum and that baby into our home, and when the little girl arrived, the 14-year-old, she was rocking in the seat. And by the time she left with her baby, she was a competent, caring mum. While Ed was at work, he could only come home and hear about the wonderful days that I had when I handed over babies to their new families, but now we get to do that together.
Make a real celebration out of it. Often people ask us, don't you get too attached to these babies? But the joy that we experience in handing the baby over to their adoptive parents, that's it. It's really such a privilege to see them instantly in love with their new child. Are you ready for him?
I figure that what you have in life is not only for you, and if you have an abundance of it, that you should really share it around. What you give, you get double back.
From underneath the trees, we watch the sky, confusing stars and satellites. I never dreamed that you'd be mine, but here we are, we're here tonight, singing, hey, man, I'm alive, singing, hey, man, I am alive. If everyone cared and nobody cried, if everyone loved and nobody lied, if everyone shared and swallowed their pride, then we'd see the day when nobody died. And I'm singing, hey, man, I'm alive. Hey, man, I'm alive. And in the air, the fireflies, our only light in paradise. We'll show the world they were wrong, and teach them all to sing along, singing, hey, man, I'm alive, singing, hey, man, I am alive. If everyone cared, nobody cried, if everyone loved and nobody lied, if everyone shared and swallowed their pride, then we see the day when nobody died. If everyone cared and nobody cried, if everyone loved and nobody lied, if everyone shared and swallowed their pride, then we see the day when nobody died. Nobody died.
We just walked right through all the stones, all the bottles, and whatever they threw. We have won a major victory.